What's up, you guys? I'm charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to Film Theory. We solved Rick and Morty Season 4, Episode 1 by the Film Theorist. Now, hopefully this be quite awesome. Wait a minute. What, is this off? The camera position seems off. It's annoying me. No, it's like perfect. What's wrong with me today? Anyway, hopefully this be quite awesome. The original link's in the description. Make sure you go subscribe to the Film Theorist if you haven't already. Without any further ado, let's begin.
There's a lesson here, and I'm not the one that's gonna figure it out.
Don't worry, Rick. That's why I'm here.
What's with the lighting? The lighting seems off.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, where I'd like to personally congratulate...
Wait, why is he greened in? Why he's green screened into his own like office? Because normally, you know, he doesn't green screen himself in here. He normally he's there in person.
Dan Harmon for finally getting to work on a 4th season of one of his shows. Woo! I mean, sure, 6 seasons in the movie didn't quite work out for you, but hey, things are looking a bit brighter when it comes to Rick and Morty, right?
100 years! Push it to the Rick and Morty, push it to the...
100 years Rick and Morty! I mean, that's a big promise, Dan, but to be fair, so few shows on television right now combine such subtle humor with big brain concepts that only us with the highest of IQs can totally understand, so...
Are you referring to that stupid meme with that person saying, Rick and Morty's only for like the smartest individuals with the high IQs or whatever?
I can see it sticking around for a long time. And yes, by the way, I do have my Rick and Morty tattoo. And no, you cannot see it. It's for the ladies' eyes only. Thank you very much. So...
Now I want to know if that was real or if that was just a joke.
Season 4 just started, and Rick and Morty is back showing that it ain't pulling any punches. The Season 4 premiere, Rick, Die, Repeat, is everything that we've come to love about the show. Hilarious.
What do you want?
Meta.
You ruined the Season 4 premiere!
And most importantly, smart. This episode throws a lot at us, and I mean a lot. In this single episode, it does everything from showing us a universe full of fascist shrimp to...
Okay, this is a total side note. Is Matt filming this, like, not at his normal place of filming? Because he looks off. Like, it looks like he's filming this on a green screen, and then they just edited it so that it looks like he's where he normally is.
To holograms gaining corporeal forms, to even referencing the anime classic of Akira.
Oh, real nice, Rick. Turning our son into an Akira?
Leave it to Jerry, the normie, to go and ruin anime for all of us. And because it does throw so much at us in this one episode, it's actually really easy to lose track of what this episode is really all about. Rick even calls it out for us in the episode. Almost like it's a challenge.
There's a lesson here, and I'm not the one that's gonna figure it out.
So today I wanted to try something new. Something that's a little bit more laid back, with fewer edits, a bit more of a casual discussion. Not so much a theory as it is an analysis of what this episode was really all about.
So not a theory, but instead you're going to be analyzing it, then you're going to be building kind of like a thesis around it, trying to justify the course of action in it. So, that's called a theory, Matt.
What was the Season 4 premiere trying to tell us? Because once you look past all the body horror and skinny dipping, this is a shockingly upbeat episode of Rick and Morty. And the message, at least the message as I see it, is perhaps the most humanitarian one that this show has had to date. The entire plot of the episode seems to be based around 2 conflicting ideas that send Rick Sanchez and Morty Smith into diverging directions. It all starts when Rick takes Morty on a mission to fetch some death crystals, rocks that, when they're touched, give you a prophetic vision of your future, specifically the deathy part of your future.
Death crystals show you how you're gonna die. Your future stems from your present, which if you're living right...
That's kind of like a, isn't that like a question that people ask, you know, if you had the opportunity to know how you're going to die and when, would you want to know? Or would you just let it come? Yeah! I think personally, I don't know, because I've obviously thought of that. You know, personally, I think I would probably want to know, just because I could then prepare for said situation. You know, like if you know you're going to go out a month from now, all of a sudden, you know, the things I do every day would change dramatically, and I would try to live as much as I could within that time frame. Does that make sense?
Right, keeps changing.
Rick, of course, only wants the crystals to sell to the highest bidder. He doesn't want to know his own destiny except when it helps him to avoid death in the immediate present.
I don't use them. People that spend their life avoiding death are already dead. They're also rich, and I like to spend my life with their money.
Rick's philosophy here boils down to one key phrase.
The truth is, anyone that knows how they're definitely gonna die is either boring as
HE double hockey sticks.
Morty, however,
So I guess I'm boring.
seems to disagree. Ignoring Rick's advice, he decides to keep a death crystal in his pocket. And by touching it, he sees the various futures laid out before him, including one that involves him dying of old age in the loving arms of Jessica, the girl he's had a crush on since episode 1. Morty decides that this is the death that he wants, and he decides to relentlessly pursue that death by taking whatever steps necessary that will cause him to have that fate.
I mean, that's a reasonable, it's a reasonable decision.
Using the crystal in his pocket as a compass, every move he makes and every word he says from that point forward is directed towards that end goal, which, as it turns out, leads him to crashing the space cruiser and killing Rick in the process.
Some decisions come with consequences.
And then, not taking the steps necessary to revive Rick.
hey, ho, ho! Not cloning your grandpa has got to go!
Luckily for Rick, Operation Phoenix is still online in other parts of the multiverse.
What the
Heck.
I axed this protocol.
Oh, and for those of you who don't remember, Operation Phoenix was actually the protocol introduced in Season 2's episode Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, a sort of immortality project for Rick to be reborn into a clone body if his main body ever bites the big one. And yes, he did literally axe that program.
I guess it's back to the drawing board.
So he gave the program the axe, but Rick isn't the
I think you forgot to censor him running around naked there, Matt. That looks like it might have been a little bit of an oopsie.
only Rick in the multiverse, so that didn't stop him from being reincarnated into clone bodies that other Ricks across that multiverse were cultivating in other dimensions. Rick and Morty spend the rest of the episode on their separate adventures. Morty relentlessly follows whatever the Death Crystal tells him will lead him to dying with Jessica, which includes a Meeseeks-filled rampage and skipping a skinny dip with the girl of his dreams.
I'm assuming we maybe get together in our 40s?
Eventually, it all ends with him turning himself into a giant Akira-inspired goo monster in the desert as he waits for further instructions from the Death Crystal. Shout out to all the fans of classic 80s anime out there. Morty seems to be pretty
I wonder if the creators of Rick and Morty are fans of anime, and that's why they included it in there. Or is that just to appease the anime fans?
soulless and not to be fully enjoying the present moment, but hey, you gotta secure that future with Jessica, right? Rick, meanwhile, is off living,
Whatever it takes.
dying in the present moment, visiting a fascist universe, a fascist shrimp universe, and a fascist teddy bear universe. The cuddliest of all fascism, before finally being reincarnated into a wasp body, which surprisingly turns out to be the chillest of all the different dimensions.
We eat our prey alive, and when we don't, we lay our eggs in their eyeballs so that our young can feast on their brains when they hatch. When you're born that big and
Doo-doo head.
the least you can do is have a little empathy.
Wasp Rick helps our Rick get back home, and together they take down Morty in the desert, freeing him from the self-imposed bondage of the Death Crystal. After defeating an AI hologram with a little help from Wasp Rick, they all head home to not contemplate the moral of today's story.
There's a lesson here, and I'm not the one that's gonna figure it out.
Okay, maybe they talk about it a little.
I guess I gotta learn how to live in the moment a little more. Oh boy, so you actually learned something today? I was living in the moment all day and it kept getting me killed. I think you have to think ahead and live in the moment.
Seems like a pretty
Yeah, that's a very logical way to live. I think a lot of people need to do that. A lot of people are either living too much in the future, you know, like they're not willing to live today in order to try to secure a better future. But then a lot of people are all they want to do is to live in the moment, and they don't care about their future. And you need to kind of be in the middle of both, where you think about your future, you work towards your future goals and whatnot, but at the same time, you also take some time to have a little bit of fun, right?
straightforward moral, right? The constant dichotomy of live in the moment versus plan for the future. And the solution that they come to, shock of all shocks, is you need to do all things in moderation. You need a little bit of both. Or at least that's what it appears to be at first glance. But there's actually more to this philosophical debate than meets the eye. You see, that isn't the real message of this episode.
Okay, that's not the real message? Well, I mean, it seems like it is, but I guess Matt's gonna ruin Rick and Morty.
Rick's philosophy of living in the moment actually sounds similar to the core teachings of Zen Buddhism. Now, I could stand here and describe it for you, but British author Tim Lott actually sums it up really well. Quote from him, "The emphasis on the present moment is perhaps Zen's most distinctive characteristic. In our Western relationship with time, in which we compulsively pick over the past in order to learn lessons from it and then project into a hypothetical future in which those lessons can be applied, the present moment has been compressed into a tiny sliver on the clock face between a vast past and an infinite future.
I feel like I will end up spending an infinite future down here in the basement."
Zen, more than anything else, is about reclaiming and expanding the present moment. It tries to have you understand that there is no purpose in getting anywhere if, when you get there, all you do is think about getting to some other future moment. Life
Oh, that makes sense.
exists in the present or nowhere at all. And this seems pretty spot on when it comes to Morty, right?
But you should learn from your past, because you know the saying, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it, or those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That's quite accurate. So you should be mindful of, you know, history and what happened, and you should try to avoid those kind of situations happening again, like, you know, Tiananmen Square, you know, World War II, the situations that led to that. People should learn from history, otherwise it's going to happen again and again and again.
Morty is so obsessed with how he's gonna die in this episode that he doesn't care about how he's living. I mean, he's a teenage boy who wants to wind up with Jessica, yet he turns down an opportunity to spend more quality time with her and her friends where he'll get to know them all just a little bit better.
A bunch of us girls were gonna go skinny dipping later if you wanted to join.
Yeah, he would get to know them a little bit better. I am sure
Maybe not a little.
conversations that they would have had would have been very meaningful. Anyway, he pursues some vague idea of this future happiness, but in doing so, he ignores the happiness that's sitting right in front of him, undressing itself and jumping into the nearest lake. In this way, he is the antithesis of Zen Buddhism's teachings, which is why Morty's first words with the death crystal are so ironic in this episode.
Why don't you do what I do and just go with the flow? Nice and zen, baby.
Sorry, Morty, you're not being Zen at all.
Yo, screw you, Morty. You fake Zen looking ass.
In fact, Morty's philosophy is probably closest to what's known as objectivism. The idea that there are certain ultimate objective truths and that those truths supersede all of our subjective experiences like perceptions, emotions, or imagination. For Morty, his objective truth in this episode is that dying with Jessica at an old age is the best possible way to end his life.
Matt, you're really digging deep into this theory. I still think the original theory that they gave in the episode makes sense. I guess Matt is not just like expounding on that idea then, or is that even a word?
And rather than trust his own feelings or instincts, Morty follows the death crystal, who serves as his objective and impartial guide to life.
Sorry, hologram Rick. I'm going with the crystal on this one.
To Morty, everything else in his world exists only to help him towards making that future a reality. He evaluates the moral rightness and wrongness of each action based on whether it's going to lead him closer to that end goal. So, allowing Rick to die and stay dead, well, it moves him closer to that ultimate goal, so it's okay. Same with attacking bullies, same with attacking the police. All of these are morally reprehensible things, but they become morally justified under Morty's new value system, which only cares about one thing, whether or not it'll benefit him and lead him to dying with Jessica. In his mind, the ends justify the means. The show concludes by saying this.
I think that's the same with a lot of people's minds, that the ends justify the means.
I think you have to think ahead and live in the moment.
It makes it sound like Rick and Morty's philosophies both have problems that run in opposite directions. But in truth, Rick and Morty are both wrong for the exact same reason. You see, both Rick and Morty fall victim to the same trap. And that trap is ethical egoism. It's not catchy in the slightest. Ethical ego.
This is a very big brain episode, Matt. I mean, it's a little bit hard for my small brain to follow along with.
Egoism is a theory, a consequentialist theory, that the consequences for any individual are the thing that matter the most when evaluating the morality of that individual's choices. Now, that sounds really complex and confusing, and it It is when it's phrased that way, but it's really not that hard to understand, so let me simplify it. In short, egoism is all about taking actions that benefit you, even if they might be hurtful to others. So, Rick taking Morty on deadly adventures, example of egoism. Morty vaporizing bullies because he wants to get with Jessica, egoism. If that sounds like an inherently selfish and potentially dangerous philosophy with which to look at the world, well, you're not wrong.
All right, total side note, Matt, this is driving me nuts. Look at this. It's not, look at this. What the frig happened here? Why does it look like this? It should be complete, Matt. Why are the pentagons not, look at these, it's separated. Please, fix this.
But it is founded on a reasonable core principle, right? The fact that each individual person is the best expert on how to make themselves happy. By allowing everyone to be free to pursue whatever makes them happy in life, well, everyone will just take care of their own happiness and society will be all the better for it. That's the idea, but I think you can probably see a couple problems with it, right? If you
just look after your own happiness, that's not a good way to live. Because I think a lot of happiness is based off of community, if that makes sense, and other people, and just looking after yourself and not really caring about anyone else, that's probably not going to go over so well.
If you're only looking out for your own self-interest, those interests might wind up being...
Yeah, and also if your interests are crazy, like Hitler, I think that's how you spell it, right? His interests were not so good.
Detrimental to others. I mean, in a Rick and Morty context, just look at what makes Crumbopulous Michael happy.
Hi, Morty. I'm Crumbopulous Michael. I'm an assassin. I just love killing.
If he's set free on society, out to pursue his own happiness, it means a lot of other people are going to have their happiness prematurely cut off. The episode makes it seem like the solution is to find a compromise between the extremes of plan for the future and live in the present moment. But both Rick and Morty miss the point. It's not about either of those things. It's not about planning for the future or living in the moment. It's about not being a selfish jerk in the immediate. Not being a pure egomaniac. Morty, throughout the episode, is willing to do whatever...
Okay, I can kind of see where Matt's coming here. Yeah! And I think that definitely is true. But I think, you know, if you aren't an egomaniac and a selfish jerk and whatnot, then, you know, the moral that they gave in the show is still valid, where you should, it's like, if you had $1,000 today, the smart thing to do would not be to waste it all today and enjoy the moment and then have no money, and also putting all of it towards, you know, a savings or investment or something like that, and then you have nothing for the moment. That's, you see, neither of those make you happy. But when you put a chunk of the $1,000 away, but you still give yourself a little bit of money to go do something and have some fun, that's probably the better way to live. And as long as you're not a jerk and you're not too selfish and whatnot about it, then I think still preparing for the future but still living in the moment is probably the better way to live. That makes sense. But I do see where Matt's coming here. That, yeah, you shouldn't hurt other people and be a jerk just to accomplish your goals for the future.
Whatever it takes to achieve his goal in the long term, but the same is true for Rick in the short term. Rick, throughout the episode, is willing to do whatever it takes to get himself home, even if it means hiling Wasp Hitler.
Hell, Wasp Hitler? Look, I'm a primate. I'm having a hard time. I'll think or say whatever gets me home.
Wasp Hitler. We'll see if that's a search term that flags YouTube's algorithms. It's
Probably. I'm gonna censor that word. That's why I spelt it earlier.
Same consequentialist theory. Egoism. What eventually saves both Rick and Morty isn't learning to plan for the future, but learning the importance of empathy. From Wasp Rick.
Well, here's how it works with wasps. We eat our prey alive, and when we don't, we lay our eggs in their eyeballs so that our young can feast on their brains when they hatch. When you're born that big a jerk, the least you can do is have a little empathy.
It's that moment of empathy from Wasp Rick that allows our Rick to eventually return home.
I wish I had a home to return to, but my wife took it in the settlement.
And it's that empathy that he learns that gets him to save and care for Morty. I mean, look at how caring and gentle he is to Morty when he's rescued from the Akira monster.
Quiet, idiot, quiet. It's gonna be all right.
He has never expressed that level of...
Yeah, normally Rick's a lot more rude.
Of care to Morty, and yet here it is on full display. Morty similarly has an eye-opening revelation in the post-credits scene when he learns that the future he foresaw this entire time was actually just a vision of him dying without any friends or family, with Jessica working as a hospice nurse who stayed with him simply because he had no other loved ones there to comfort him. Rick doesn't abandon his philosophy of living in the moment, and Morty doesn't have to abandon his philosophy of planning for the future. Instead, both of them learn to see outside of their own self-interest. Ultimately, whether you prioritize the present or plan for the future doesn't matter. If you're only focused on selfishly serving yourself, it'll lead you down a path of destruction.
See, that's true, but I also think you should plan for the future. A lot of people live this way where they get a paycheck, they go blow all their money at a club or on something stupid, and then they'll complain that they have no money. And they aren't, because they weren't thinking of the future. I think you definitely have to, you know, care about other people and have empathy and whatnot, but you also have to think about the future and try to have a balance between living in the moment and planning for a better future for yourself, you know?
Sure, all that talk about living in the moment versus plan for the future may have been a point to the episode, but it wasn't the point of the episode.
Or the whole point.
In the end, what really matters is about balancing your own interest with the needs of the world around you, which feels like an especially pointed message considering some members of the Rick and Morty fandom have sometimes gotten a bit of a toxic label in their
Are they trying to send a message to the fans?
behavior, bullying others, trashing McDonald's for Szechuan sauce.
I remember that. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it is a message that's buried under a lot of layers in this
Yeah, the message is so deep that most people won't get that, and I had to have Matt explain it to me for me to get it.
episode, but you know, the Rick and Morty fandom has super high IQs, so they'll get it.
But hey,
I like this episode.
what'd you think of this new, more laid-back style? Did you like?
It didn't seem different than normal. It really didn't seem different than normal, Matt. I don't think this is a different style. I did notice, however, that you green screened yourself into your normal office or whatever, so I don't know what that's about. Maybe you were out of town or something. But I don't know. I didn't like the edges of the green screen, and I know that's such a picky thing. Like with the edges of Matt, like if you see his head or whatever, it's all fuzzy. You can sharpen that. I know you can sharpen that in if you use Premiere to edit. I know you can sharpen that to make it just a little bit crisper of an edge, and I think that would have been a little bit better. That's just what bothered me. But you know, I really like this episode. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. I think Matt's pretty correct in the plot here, or the not the plot, the purpose or the message behind it. But I also, where you know, you should have empathy towards other people, and if you are gonna go after your own goals and whatnot, you should definitely think about other people and to make sure that you're not hurting other people. But I don't really agree with him saying that, oh, you know, it doesn't matter if you think about the future or if you think about the present, as long as you just care about other people. Like, I agree with the caring about the other people part, but I don't agree with just living the moment, that's fine. Just because a lot of people do that, and then they end up wasting everything, and then they have nothing, and that's not a good way to live. You know, you should always plan for a better future for yourself and your family and whatnot. Whatever. Anyway, I hope you guys like this. And I think I'd rate this theory. Like, it makes sense. I think I'd rate it. I don't know. I like the video. Of course, I'm running out of free. Okay, I gotta hurry this up. I'd rate this like an 8.5 out of 10, I guess. With that being said, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Film Theory. If you're new, subscribe to the family. I'll see you guys next time. Boop.